Mona, will you stop? Dun, da, 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 da. Today's the day! My book is out! I'm so excited! I can't believe we did it, guys! We did it! We did it! We did it! My book is out! We did it! We did it! Okay, my book, my debut novel, A Perfect Vintage, the book of the summer, some are saying, is officially out and ready for purchase wherever you like to buy books. I'm linking that all in the description where you can buy it, as well as information about the Many City Book Tour that I'm going to be going on this summer. I'll also be doing digital events for those of you who aren't in one of the cities that I'm visiting or for which the city is already sold out. But yes, it is here. The day has arrived. My book is officially in the world. And I wanted to do what I promised I would do, which is like a total financial breakdown of this process, because it has been one of the biggest financial investments I've ever made in my life outside of like buying my home. It's a much more substantial investment than I actually made in TFD in terms of the dollar amount, although because I wasn't earning income for the first like year and a half at TFD, technically, it's probably actually more of an investment in TFD, but like just in terms of cash I put into it, publishing this book on my own, starting my own imprint to do it myself and to retain creative control and all of the IP, which I'm not going to bore you guys again with. It is in the description below. I did an announcement video that talks about a summary of the book, which you can also just see here if you want to pause. It's a romance novel. It takes place in the Loire Valley in France. A woman falls for a younger man. I'm not going to go into more detail than that because I already did a video about it. That's linked. But I want to talk about the logistics and the nitty gritty of it. So I'm going to talk about overall numbers to date, which, as we all kind of, I would assume, know, will change and increase as the year goes on slightly. Although I'm toward the end of the spending, and now I'm getting into the earning part of making this investment. So these numbers are to date. The only thing that is not included in this breakdown is the audiobook, which I am doing separately. I'll actually, if you guys want to hear a quick clip of the audiobook, I actually hired, hold on to your hats, folks, a man to read the audiobook. He's a very popular voice actor creator on the internet who has never done an audiobook before, so this is his first, and I think he's doing an amazing job. And for those of you who want a teaser of the audiobook, I'm going to put that at the end of the video in case you guys want to hear it. But that is an investment that is pretty separate from the book because it's like a totally different process. In total, I'm probably going to be putting between like $6,000 and $7,000 up front, plus a revenue share with my voice actor and producer. But again, that's pretty separate from just the paper and ebook version of the book that I wanted to break down. So as of filming on the book, everything outside of the audiobook, I have spent a total of $34,303.49. I'm looking at my QuickBooks right now. So of that, the expense categories, $11,738.51 of that went to editing, which I'll break down. $7,585.62 of that has gone into advertising. $6,214.30 of that has gone into production and logistics, and $6,765.06 are everything else. So just to kind of break that down for anyone who is thinking of indie publishing, the editing, as you can see, is currently the biggest chunk, although I think marketing will slightly overtake that in the long run. I expect to spend close to $40,000 in total, with a huge amount of that being marketing. So the editing, first and foremost, so I worked with a structural editor who is an editor primarily working in the romance genre at a Big 5 publishing house who really liked the book. And I paid her a flat fee of $10,000 to edit the book. And she's actually the only person on my team for the most part, who is not on a rev share, who wanted all flat fee, just because, she not only has a full-time job, she's really not supposed to be doing this. So long-term, being tied up with the book is just probably more risk than reward for her professionally, which I totally understand. But we talk. She's obviously very supportive of the book, although she must remain anonymous. Her fingerprints are all over it, as I say in the acknowledgments. And then in terms of line editing, which is a separate editor who I've worked with on many different projects over the years, and we will be doing a revenue share. Basically, everyone else that I've worked with on the book, the painter that did the cover art, my designer, my marketing partner, everyone is on some kind of a rev share where they get a certain percentage of the profits. And that is from first book sold. It's not after I recoup my investment. So it will take me slightly longer to earn back my investment because I am doing that rev share up front. But I think it's only fair because everyone put in that work, from day one. So they should be seeing the benefit on the back end from day one. In terms of marketing and advertising, a lot of that is creating all of the mailers I did, like you can see here, and sending them out to a bunch of people. Like just postage alone has been extremely expensive. Luckily in the US, if you're shipping a book domestically, it's media mail, which means it's a lot less expensive than normal shipping. It's $4.35 every time I shipped one of the books. Plus I actually had to buy the book, the note card, the ribbon, the one sheeter that I folded up into it, the envelope, everything else. So all in domestically, it cost me about $10, $12 ish to send an individual mailer. And then internationally, if I was shipping to Canada, it was $25. If I was shipping to Europe, it was 30 plus. So that added up pretty quickly. The events that I'm doing, as I mentioned, I'm doing a book tour. Most of the events I'm breaking even on because I sell them as ticketed events. But even then, I have to get myself to them. I have to actually bring the books, unless it's in a bookstore where the bookstore buys it. Like if it's in a restaurant or hotel, I have to provide the books. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of a loss on the tour overall, but to me, I actually am totally fine with that because I look at the book tour as a really, really powerful marketing tool because, each event, 50 to 100 people go to the event, then they take pictures of the book, they read the book, they tell their friends about the book, they get kind of involved with it. And yes, there are still tickets available for some cities. That is in the link at the description. The book website has everything you'll need. The book production, which is something that is definitely the most distinct part of doing indie publishing, is you have to figure all of this out yourself, which was, I'm not going to lie, the most annoying part of the process by far. However, now that it's been done once, I'm very confident about doing it again because all of that work has been figured out already. And that means things like testing different cover specs, the thickness of the pages, the darkness of the ink, different fonts, different bindings, like whether the cover is matte or glossy, all of these little things you had to figure out, and whether you're going to do offset printing, which is where you print quantities of the book and store them and ship them, or you're going to do print on demand, which I ultimately ended up doing because although it is more expensive per unit, it's just a lot easier and a lot more accessible, and you just don't have to worry about the whole shipping and distribution part of it, which third parties, there are a lot of third parties out there that will take care of those things for you, but because they take a cut, it basically erases all of the savings that you would have earned by doing batch printing rather than print on demand. So I went through all of those calculations. I have spreadsheets that have, all of the different variables, but doing the actual printing and production was a very big time and energy suck. My assistant worked on a lot of that stuff. And so a lot of the spending that I did was just man hours and, woman hours. In terms of recouping my investment, so I will need to sell around 7,000 copies in order to break even. I obviously don't know the exact amount until I have a total final number of what I've invested in the book, which I won't have until I'm done with the tour, more or less. All summer is going to be promo mode to some extent, so that number will creep up, and therefore the number of books that I need to sell to recoup my investment will continue to creep up as well. The one thing that has been really frustrating in this process is that basically I don't have access to all of my data on any kind of remotely real-time basis from the essentially the how should I say this? The facilitator, the portal where booksellers buy books. It's a portal called Ingram. It's the system that basically all books use, and that is where my books are coming from. They do not release up-to-date numbers very frequently. It's been drips and drabs. Like, I can access like my Kindle numbers pretty easily, but like Ingram will like not update for days on end, and then I'll get an update randomly that like I sold 400 books yesterday because some blogger posted it or whatever. So basically, I don't know how many copies I've sold yet, and I probably won't know until about a week after publication, it seems like. However, I have a lot of context clues. For context, the majority of books sell under 2,000 copies total in their lifetime. My goal overall is to sell about 100,000 copies of the book total in its lifetime, which is an ambitious goal. It would make it one of the better selling books in a given year if it were to sell that much. But I'm feeling pretty confidently. The response has been very good so far. It's gotten a lot of organic word of mouth, a lot of organic energy. So I'm definitely feeling very confidently that I will recoup my investment. It's just a question of when, and then it's just a question of how much on top of that I will earn. Which brings me to the other financial aspect here. So one thing that I think really needs to change in the publishing industry is that genre fiction, which romance is, but it's also, mystery, sci-fi, fantasy, etc. These are generally considered genre fiction, where most of the titles get released initially as paperbacks, usually trade paperbacks, which has a lot of implications for the author, but notably the paperback royalties hover around 7.5% of profits as compared to hardcover royalties, which are about 15% of profits. 7.5 is inexcusable, especially when you consider that genre fiction keeps the publishing industry afloat. Those books are the books that the majority of people buy. People buy trade paperbacks that you buy at a drugstore or, in the genre section at a bookstore or on Amazon or what have you. But those genres are pretty disrespected. The authors are not given very good advances. They're locked into not great deals. And on the back end, if they earn out their advance, which the majority of books do not, if they earn out their advance, they stand to earn 7.5% of the profits of all copies sold after that on average, which is extremely low. For context, my profit margins on each of these copies sold is between 40 and 70% of the list price. It will be different for audiobook because, as some of you might know, Amazon has created a monopoly on that market that I'm not even sure how it doesn't violate antitrust laws, but suffice to say, margins on audiobooks, if you go Amazon exclusive, hover at around 40% of list price. And fun fact about audiobooks, if I can just complain about that for a second, you don't decide the price of your audiobook on Amazon. They decide it for you. They use a pretty consistent set of factors, so you pretty much know what it will be priced at, but still, you're not allowed to set that price yourself. So once again, like with the budget, audiobook is totally aside. It's a completely separate entity. But the good news about audiobooks is they obviously scale infinitely because rather than being a physical product, they're, just a file. So, and like I said, I will be playing a clip of the audiobook at the end of the video if you would like to give that a listen. But so because the profits that I make on each copy of the book are so much higher than they would be if I were with a traditional publisher, that means that once I earn out the investment that I've made, it really just kind of scales infinitely from there. So I'm feeling very, very good about this. Looking back, I wish that I would have taken a sabbatical from TFD because it's just been a lot of work. I don't really have much of a life anymore. I don't cook. I don't see friends very often. I just don't vibe anymore ever. I know that it's temporary, so it's fine, but it's every day I wake up and there's just an endless list of things to do for the book and then for my actual job. And that sucks. I don't like it. I miss having free time. I miss not thinking about work and being anxious and thinking about all of the stuff that I have to do constantly. That has been, not a mood, not something I would recommend. But other than that, it's been really good. One thing that I've been kind of surprised by is that when I made my original video, it was so new in the world, no one outside of my friends had really read it. And your friends are always nice to you. So there was that worry about are people going to like it? Overall, yes, people are really enjoying it. So that's been exciting. But one thing that I have been really heartened by is that like there are certain people that don't vibe with it. It's just not their favorite book. And I was like really worried that would really upset me. And I have found it doesn't deter how I feel about the book at all. And I sort of, especially depending on the type of critical feedback it is, I feel a feeling of like, yeah, well, it wasn't for them, like different strokes, like it takes all kinds. And that I think has been a really good exercise in learning how to process, feedback in a way that is like, it's probably amongst the most vulnerable things you can do in terms of exposing yourself to other people's opinions. And I think overall that has given me exposing myself to it and processing it and not letting it dissuade how I feel both about the project editorially, but also about the act of doing it has been a really important and valuable thing in life because, again, while the response has been overwhelmingly positive, I think it's very common for creatives to feel extremely sensitive to the, limited number of voices who maybe don't like it quite as much. And I think that that can be obviously very bad for mental health because criticism is inevitable. But I think also B, it is often what keeps people from trying anything at all. It keeps people from publishing that book or releasing that song or sharing that painting. And to me, that is always the real tragedy in any person's story is all of the things that they never allow themselves to do because they're afraid of how someone might receive it. And so I think if anything, like this process has really changed my life first and foremost in the sense of confidence that it gives me. Like I was saying to my husband the other day, sometimes I feel like I'm playing a video game in life because once you sort of lose that fear of rejection or failure, once you kind of make a commitment to like, I'm going to try this thing. If I want to do it, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to see how it works. Like everything opens itself up to you. Like you realize there's so little to be afraid of. You realize that, the worst case scenario is actually not that bad. And you realize that there's just a boundless amount of potential in life for all of the things that you can do and try and become. And usually the vast majority of what stands between people and doing those things is this preemptive fear of putting themselves out there in, a way that makes them vulnerable. So if you're not afraid of being vulnerable, life is your oyster, man. Like it's awesome. I feel like I'm playing The Sims and I entered the Rosebud cheat code and I'm just making my dream mansion all the time with like 4 hot tubs in one room. Anyway, it's been a really great experience. It's been stressful. It's been a lot of work. It's obviously been a fair amount of money, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt, it is all worth it. I love hearing people's feedback. I love seeing people post pictures with it. I love, the joy that it has brought, to people and, just the experience of getting to explore this side of my work persona has been beyond thrilling. So as I said in the announcement video, it would mean the world to me if you would pre-order, well, I guess actually just order a copy now because it's available, or come to one of my events that I'll be doing this summer. But if not, just thank you for watching. And most importantly, whatever that thing is that you're thinking of doing or trying and you're a little nervous about, like, let me tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, giving yourself permission to do the thing is the greatest gift you can give yourself, and life is infinitely more beautiful when you take those risks. So go forth, prosper, put yourself out there. And as I mentioned, without further ado, here's a little sneak peek of the audiobook to send us out.
Dinner consisted of small tartlets of all kinds of local vegetables, a creative, creamy take on gazpacho, French-style paella with clams and mussels, lacquered duck with citrus roast potatoes, and a blind test of wine for pairing with each course, led by an increasingly tipsy Danielle. Small sounds of gastronomic pleasure rose from the table, along with easy laughter, facilitated by the romantic, universally flattering candlelit atmosphere. From further down the table, Teo was holding court with some of the chateau staff about a family of deer he'd seen on the outskirts of the property that morning, while gallantly making sure everyone was served before he filled his own plate with each course. And when he did finally eat, she noticed it was with a kind of joyous abandon, closing his eyes to savor flavors and remarking loudly on what he loved, and heaping his plate high with the things he loved the most. It was like the rest of him, unapologetic, full of life, and not at all how Leah herself lived.
All right, guys. I'll see you next week.